Hi guys! Today we're going to work on approximating square roots to 3 decimal places without the aid of a calculator or a smartwatch. And a couple reasons why we're doing this. I noticed on some of the Airways questions that they ask you to approximate a square root between 2 integer values, but then they make you get more specific than that. It's also in the 8th grade standards, and I want to make sure that we are prepared for iLearn. So, I had never done this before, and I got on the internet, searched a couple different methods, and this is the one I think will be easiest for us to remember. It's a 5-step process, and I'm going to summarize the process here. You can take notes along with me if you want to, or you can keep referring back to the video. And as I tell you each step of the process, I'm going to show you an example of what I mean. So the first step of the process is to find 2 integer values, and I'll call them A and B, that the square root would be between. So whatever number I'm trying to take the square root of, it needs to fall between these 2 numbers, and A and B have to have a difference of 1, so they must be consecutive integers. So if my example is I'm trying to approximate the square root of 10, for step 1 I would say, well, the square root of 10 I know has to fall between 3 and 4. That's the first step, identifying the 2 whole numbers that it has to be between. Now, the second step of the process, we actually have to divide. Now, what we do is we take our number, whatever number, like here, it would be 10, but my number, and I divide it by the smaller of the 2 integers, and that gives me a new answer that I will call C. For example, over here, I would be taking my number 10, dividing it by 3, and getting an answer that is 3.3 repeating, so I'm just going to leave it as 10/3. Step 3. After I've done that division, I need to find the average of the divisor and the answer, just from the previous step. So the divisor is what you're dividing by, and that would be A, and up here, this is C. So to find the average, I would be taking A plus C, dividing it by 2, and let's call that answer D. Whatever we get from that, we'll call D. So step 3 would look like over here. I'm going to find the average of the divisor and the answer. So I need 3 plus 10/3. I'll divide all of that by 2. I need to work this out so that I can find out the value of D. You may want to have a piece of scratch paper handy because you are going to have to do a lot of getting common denominators and multiplying by hand since they don't give us the use of a calculator. 3 is 9/3 plus 10/3 gives me 19/3. So I'm at 19/3. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by a half. So really that is 19/6. Okay, there's D. There's my thought. Step 4. After I've done that average, I go back and I do a new division. So now I'm going to divide my original number that I was trying to square root, but instead of dividing it by the smallest integer value, I'm going to divide it by that new number I found, which was D. And whatever that answer is, we're going to call E. So step 4 over here will look like this. I need my original number, 10, divide it by D, which was the last answer I just found, 19/6. Okay, that's the same thing as 10 over 1 times 6 over 19, or that gives me 60/19. All right, I have found E. So now, after that, one last average, and we're at our 5th and final step. So step 5, I need to find the average again of the divisor and the answer. And so that would be doing D plus E, dividing it by 2, and whatever that answer is, we'll call F, and F is approximately the square root of my number. I just have to divide it out to however many decimal places I need. So step 5 over here is going to look like this. I need the average of the divisor and the answer that we had just gotten, right? It took me a little bit of a process to get there, but I'm trying to do the average of 19/6 plus 60/19 all over 2. This is where I said the scratch paper might come in handy because I'm going to have to get a common denominator between 6 and 19. So what I would do here is multiply this by 19 over 19, multiply this by 6 over 6, so I'm really multiplying by values of 1. And when I do that math, I end up with 361 over 114 plus here I get 360 over 114. Instead of doing all divided by 2, I'm going to take all of that times a half so that I don't have to have that complex looking fraction anymore. When I add these two digits or two numerators together, I get 721 out of 114 times a half. I can't cross reduce, that would have made it nice, but it doesn't. So I end up with the answer to that as 721 out of 228. That is my approximate, I just got to divide that and find how many 3 decimal places, and that's approximately the square root of my number, which was 10. So I'm going to take a little bit of time here, try to divide this. 721 divided by 228. You could do this on that scratch paper I told you would be handy. I'm going to add some decimal points and a couple zeros. 228 goes into 721 at least 3 times. And when I multiply, 3 times 8 is 24, 6, 7, 8, and 6. Subtract, you might have to borrow. And I end up with 11 minus 4, which would be 7. And I have, this is now 11 minus 8, which gives me 3. So I have 37, bring down my 0, goes into 371 time, so subtract 228 from that. And again, borrow, 10 minus 8 is 2, 6 minus 2 is 4. I have 142, bring down another 0. It goes into 1,420, let's see, 6 times maybe. 6 times 8 gives me 48. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 13. It did go in 6 times. Again, borrow 2, 11, 5, 52. So I have a remainder of 52. Bring down another 0. 228 goes into 52 twice. And when I subtract, let's see, double of that is 456. And when I do that, I get 64 left over. I'm really running out of space here. This is not even going to go into 640 more than 5 times, so I know that 2 is not going to round up to a 3. So I'm going to say that the square root of 10 is approximately 3.162. And if I grab my calculator to check that, put in 3.162, square it, and I end up with 9.998, which is very close to 10. And so we have a 5-step process for approximating a square root without the use of technology. Best of luck, because now you're going to try some.